Hello, and welcome back to Wendy's Weird World. Or if you're new here, welcome for the first time, and I hope you come back. Today's story is Sarah and the Gray. And this story deals with a lot, from aliens to time travel to war, so if any of those might be triggers for you, this one might not be the story for you. But for those of us who are staying, let's get on with the story. Sarah and the Gray. A small figure, about 4.5 feet tall, and dressed in a military hazmat suit, is exploring a two-story home. The house is modestly furnished and covered in dust. The suited figure goes upstairs to the main bedroom and finds on top of a vanity beneath a mirror a notebook. He rubs one gloved hand across the cover, and in large bubble letters drawn in permanent marker he sees Sarah Walker. He picks up the notebook and places it into his backpack and quickly exits the home to get back to his ATV-style vehicle outside. The following is what is contained in the notebook. June 9th, 1993. The writing and doodle-like illustrations on this journal entry page are clearly done by a child. My name is Sarah. My new friend is Aaron. Aaron looks funny. He has big eyes and no hair. He is short like me. Aaron is really silly. He did not stay long, and he gives good hugs. He said he will visit again. I like Aaron. August 14th, 1995. This journal entry also has some doodles of what look like the alien species people call a gray. Presumably, they are of Aaron. I had forgotten about Aaron. Mom made me think he was imaginary. But he came back last night. I forgot how silly he looked. He is friendly, though. I have seen pictures that look like him. People call it an alien or a gray. I am lucky to have a friend like Aaron. He tells me to write everything down. He says he's from the future and that he will tell me more later. Aaron did not stay very long, but he still gives good hugs. October 31st, 1998. I almost forgot I still have this journal. Tonight was a lot of fun. Halloween, and I turned 14 today. Somehow Aaron knew because he greeted me with a warm happy birthday tonight and gave me a great big hug. Tonight he told me what he is. Aaron is a human, not an alien. He said that he might actually be the species they call the Greys, but that he's definitely not from outer space. He said it's the opposite in a way, because he's lived underground his whole life. This is why he visits at night. It's too bright for him in the daytime. He told me that the year he goes home to is 5015 AD. That sounds so crazy. He said that humans had to go underground to live in the future during World War III. He told me that the plans for the bunkers began during the Second World War, and that he'll tell me more on another visit. Aaron said that he has plans to come visit me a little more often and to be sure to write in my journal. October 11th, 1999. Aaron came to visit again tonight. He's just left with a reminder to write in my journal. I told him I was really glad to see him because everybody thinks we're headed for disaster with the new year and Y2K. Aaron told me, spoiler alert, it's just another day. I was so relieved to hear him say that. I turn 15 soon and I'll be able to get my permit for my driver's license then. Aaron said he doesn't have a license, but he does know how to drive, although they don't often use vehicles where he's from. It's so weird thinking about living that far in the future. It's almost 3,000 years from now. That's longer than going back to when Jesus lived. He doesn't like to tell me a lot about his life underground, but he said that he'll tell me what it is safe for him to tell me. He said there are rules to time travel and that it gets really complicated. He did say there are changes coming to my world in my lifetime, and that's why humans now look like him. He told me that there's going to be a huge political rift in the country and that things get very out of hand. He said that he knows that I'm young, but that I'm smart, and he knows that I can handle hearing about that much. It's really scary, but he says that he's telling me things to keep me safe, so he knows that I'll be okay whatever happens. Aaron is already asking me about college choices and what I want to do for a living. I told him I wanted to be like my mom and go into nursing school after high school. He said he thought that was a great choice and a great way to help out our race. He says some strange sounding things sometimes, but I guess I should expect it from a time traveling gray. It's hard to think of him that way since I've known him so long. It's more like family that you only get to see once in a while. November 26th, 2000. Thanksgiving weekend was great, and tonight I returned home from visiting my grandparents and was really happy to be visited by Aaron. I know it sounds weird. Even though Aaron brings with him a burden of news from the future, he is an old friend, and I'm always happy to see him. Tonight I realized he never seemed to age between visits, and I asked him about that. He told me that while for me it's years in between our visits, but for him it's only a matter of days or weeks in between visits. He told me that he isn't sure when our visits are going to end. His superiors analyze the data after each visit to see what changes have occurred in the timeline. Although he did say that if quantum physics is correct, that he and his superiors will never know if his missions are successful because it will happen in a parallel timeline. I'm not real sure what that means, but I wanted to write it down because I thought it could be important. Every visit, Aaron stresses how important writing everything down is. Tonight, he asked me if I knew about the evolution of a species. I asked him if he meant Charles Darwin, and he said yes. He said that the human species had been underground for nearly 3,000 years, which is roughly 100 generations. In that time, the human species adapted to underground living by getting smaller in average size, and their skin became very pale, having not experienced actual sunlight. Although there are UV bulbs and growing lights in the facility, it's very different than growing up on the surface. The way he phrased that just sounded so weird. On the surface. Underground, all light is artificial, and the human eyes got larger to accommodate and have better vision in lower light. When traveling to the surface, they wear black contact lenses that are for UV protection, and they make their whole eye appear to be black. But beneath the lens, there is an eye that is much more human looking. Over time, with most people spending their time studying, praying, and meditating, combined with living in such close quarters, somehow the species developed telepathic speech, although they do still talk. But in between using nonverbal communication and the population being sustained on mostly liquid diets, their mouths became smaller and the jaw less muscular. Meanwhile, as a species, they became smarter from intellectual pursuits. I asked Aaron if everyone was bald in the future, and he told me that they were. Most humans underground are military personnel or a family of someone in the military. At first, they just used the shaved hair from military members as compost since they had an indoor growing zone to produce food and oxygen. But eventually, all in the community were asked to shave their heads for growing nutrients as time passed, and the situation that was presumed to be temporary became more permanent. And eventually, the hair just stopped growing. I asked him, "So you didn't think you'd be underground as long?" Aaron told me no, but ask him about that again the next visit. That unfortunately his time was already up for this visit. He gave me a really big hug and told me he'd see me later. July 2nd, 2002. Summer vacation has been going great. I got my first part time job working in fast food. It's hot and greasy work, but it's money. I've been saving up for when I go to college, although most of my tuition should be paid for by my college fund. I can't wait until I'm able to get a job working in nursing. Aaron came by and wished me a happy early Independence Day. He wanted to check in on me and see how I was doing. I reminded him that the last time we talked, we'd been discussing the underground shelter and that it was unexpected for them to remain in the shelter for so very long. Aaron told me that they had been anticipating using the shelter to wait out a nuclear winter, and that was predicted to be around 30 years. Sometimes when he talks about this kind of stuff, I have a hard time imagining that it's my Earth that he's talking about. What happened during the Third World War was far worse because it ended up causing many nuclear power plants to go into meltdown when areas were either evacuated or destroyed due to bombing. When that happens, the surrounding areas are contaminated and considered to be uninhabitable for thousands of years due to lasting radiation. All because we couldn't get along with each other, I asked Aaron. He nodded slowly, head down. I'm embarrassed that humans did this. Our colony is military, but none of us believe in fighting and war to solve any problems. It's barbaric. Yeah, me too, I agreed. And it didn't dawn on me until later that this is my future he's talking about, and I am one of those barbaric creatures. Aaron informed me that his time was up already and that he disliked leaving on such a heavy discussion. He told me that he loved me and that he'll see me again as soon as he can, and he gave me one of his world class hugs. May 15th, 2004. Aaron visited today to congratulate me on my high school graduation, and he asked me if I was ready for college. I reminded him that my first 2 years were going to be at the local technical college to save money and stay at home. It's not that I didn't want the big college experience, it just made more sense to me. I told Aaron that I was worried about the future, and I asked him if there was anything I could do to change things. Were there protests I should be doing? What could possibly help? Aaron told me that he didn't know of anything I could do to change the outcome, but he did say that preparing me for what is coming could help humanity in the underground shelters. He told me that the medical personnel in the shelters was limited and that I would end up playing a large role in long-term healthcare underground. Aaron told me to stay safe and to enjoy being young. He said to study hard and that he'd see me again when he could. He gave me a really big hug goodbye, and I noticed how small Aaron actually is, or at least how much I've grown since I've met him. June 14th, 2009. Today, I'm officially an RN. My parents took me out to have a nice dinner to celebrate. I'm hoping that an opening will come up in the hospital. If not, then I'll have to try and find another job with better pay now that I have better credentials. Aaron came by to congratulate me on getting my RN title. I'm really glad since I consider him family. When I told him that's how I felt, he told me we are family. I am one of his ancestors. He said that one of the rules of time travel is that you can only visit people from your bloodline. The main reason for that is if you happen to cause something that would make you cease to exist, well, it's your own fault. This shook me at first, and then I realized I have kids? Aaron nodded. Yes, you have a child, and they continue our bloodline. Wait, who do I have a baby with? Aaron, ever enigmatic, simply told me, You will meet him soon, and he's everything you hope for. After that, he left without telling me very much more. He said this trip was more for congratulations than anything else. January 1st, 2010. Aaron came by to wish me Happy New Year. And I'll be honest, and Aaron already knows this. Writing this entry is a little difficult because I've had several drinks tonight to celebrate. Aaron said he understands, but that I should still write it down before I forget. Tonight, a couple of friends had talked me into going to a New Year's Eve party that was going on in the city at one of the hotels. For once, I wasn't working or on call, so I got fancied up a little and went out with them. My friend's brother met up with us there, and he brought with him one of his army buddies. His name was James Walker, and I have a sneaking suspicion he's who Aaron told me I would meet soon. James had a fabulous smile, a great sense of humor, and a wonderful laugh. I think it was obvious that we hit it off because the rest of our friends made it a point to wander off, leaving me and James alone for at least half an hour just to chat. He made sure as soon as we were alone to ask for my number. I also put his number into my phone, so I would know who was calling or messaging me. James is a mechanical engineer and he's stationed at a nearby army base. He asked if he could take me for dinner sometime, and I agreed. And when the midnight countdown started, he asked if he could kiss me. Now, if you knew the two friends I was out with tonight, you could only imagine the barrage of questions I got on the way home. They wanted to know everything about James and when we were getting married. I laughed at how silly they were being. My friend texted her brother asking him about James and how much money he made. Nothing is more embarrassing than besties. Aaron laughed when I told him about this. I was really glad to see humanity hadn't lost its sense of humor through it all. He also asked me about work. This month I start a new job at the same hospital, but this time I'm going to be working in the maternity ward, NICU, with all the newborn babies. I'm really happy an opening came up in the same hospital, but more in my field. Aaron congratulated me on this. He hopes to hear more about me and James when he returns, and he gave me a big hug before he left. May 4th, 2012. Aaron came by to visit today, and one of the first things he commented on was my new ring. I smiled at him, and I told him that James asked me to marry him, and I absolutely said yes. He clapped his hands in excitement, as though he didn't already know. Aaron is a funny one. I feel like he knows my life story, yet he still asks me questions like he doesn't know the answers. It's actually really sweet of him. I asked him, "Tell me, Aaron, are there a lot of people named Aaron in our bloodline? You know it's James' middle name." Aaron smiled. You think of a gray alien smiling, and it sounds creepy. But because Aaron is a lifelong friend, it just seems very warm to me when he smiles. Aaron is a long-time family name. There are quite a few James and Sarahs, too. Family values are very big, and many families have used family names for their children, so we don't forget where we came from. When is your wedding? Oh, Aaron, you probably know more than I do. Neither of us are in a rush about it. We haven't decided. But we're thinking maybe next fall, assuming that the end of the world doesn't happen in December, the whole Mayan calendar thing. Aaron actually chuckled. I had forgotten about that part of history. Don't worry, the world isn't ending and the poles aren't shifting on you. Good to know. I gave Aaron a smile. No plans to go to China in your future? Aaron asked. I thought it was an odd question to ask, but I told him, no, we have no travel plans outside the US. Honeymoon is going to be in Hawaii for sure. Why do you ask? I wouldn't try to plan any travel in 2019 or onward until you leave for Colorado. Colorado? I don't have any plans for that. Oh, you have plenty of time before then, and when it comes up, you'll know. Don't worry too much about it right now. I just want you to be prepared, but you still need to live your life too. I asked him, can I tell James about you? About the journal? Aaron replied, the way I see it, you have to. I actually hope to meet him one night, but that's in the future after you're married. Be sure to tell him so he's not scared when I show up, Aaron said before he held out his arms to give me a big hug goodbye. November 9th, 2014. Mrs. Sarah Walker. We did it. James is a smart one. He wanted to get married on my birthday, which is also Halloween. And now it's also our wedding anniversary. The honeymoon was wonderful. I didn't want to leave Hawaii. It is so beautiful there. Aaron welcomed us back, and it was the first time James was able to meet Aaron. Honestly, when I told James about him, I didn't expect him to believe me. I also didn't expect him to still want to be in a relationship with someone mentally ill. I remember the night I let James read the journal. I saw him blush and then laugh out loud when he got to the entry of the night we met. Sarah, I'm not gonna lie, this is literally unbelievable. Somehow, though, I know he did believe the words in my journal. I knew we were meant to be together without Aaron. You are amazing and wonderful. You help so many people. Those babies and the families you've helped save. You have a beautiful heart and a beautiful face, and I can't imagine being without you. So, if you're a little crazy on the down low, I can handle that. And he flashed his fabulous smile. And now, with James meeting Aaron for the first time, he looked at me, and then he looked back at Aaron, and then he went over to shake Aaron's hand and told him, I'm relieved to know she's not bonkers. Aaron laughed. Good to finally meet you, James. Congratulations to you both. Sorry I missed the ceremony. I didn't have a thing to wear. There was the humor that I was glad to see humanity hadn't lost. We all three sat down and talked about the journal and made sure James was caught up on everything that I'd been told so far. Before we knew it, Aaron was giving us both hugs and told us that he loves us, and he left again. March 21st, 2017. I had a breakdown today, and it's not something I want to admit, but I feel like I need to get it out. I haven't seen Aaron in over a year, and I'm almost glad. The weight of everything he's told me is crushing me. I don't know if it's the pressure of keeping this knowledge or the constant fear that I might somehow mess everything up. What if I say the wrong thing or make the wrong decision? Aaron always reassures me that I'm strong enough to handle this, but right now, I feel anything but strong. Today at work, I was holding a newborn, thinking about the world this little one was going to grow up in. The thought made me so sad I had to leave the room. I went to the staff bathroom and I cried. What kind of future do these babies have? Knowing what I know, it feels like I'm betraying them by not shouting the truth from the rooftops. But I know no one would believe me. They'd think I was insane, or worse, they'd try to silence me. And yet, here I am, carrying on as if everything is normal. I laugh with James and dream about our future together. All the while, a dark cloud looms over us. I wish I could forget what Aaron has told me just for one day, but I can't. I keep telling myself that this journal will serve a purpose one day, and that someone will find it and it will help them understand. But what if it's just a collection of my fears and regrets and nothing more? What if it doesn't change anything? Aaron says there's a reason for everything and that our actions matter, even if we just can't see the results. I want to believe him. I want to believe that I can make a difference, even if it's just by surviving and carrying on. But tonight, the fear is winning. I'm scared, not just for myself, but for all of us. What if we don't learn from our mistakes? What if we're doomed to repeat them over and over again? I hope Aaron's world is better than this one. I hope they really have found a way to live in peace, even if it's underground. Because right now, I'm not even sure we're capable of it. July 28th, 2018. Aaron stopped by to see me and James tonight. He told us to slowly start stocking up on toilet paper of all things. He said it has to do with some sort of global pandemic that starts in China near the end of 2019. But by spring of 2020, things get kind of crazy, and it takes a long time for the world to get back to something we call normal. He also recommended having plenty of hand sanitizer and alcohol. I joked that I could use a drink. Humor, what a great coping mechanism. That's the one thing I noticed about Aaron. He still had a good sense of humor. I'm sure he copes with a lot. I read my last journal entry to Aaron, and we hugged each other. He told me that he's sorry, and if he could stop it, he would. He told me that he's not the only traveler, and there are others trying to trace their roots back to see if there's any way to stop it. He assured me that they made a good life underground, but he wonders what sunshine actually is like. And if someone can change something, if he'll ever get to know what it's like. The three of us sat up and chatted for a long time. I asked, "When will we have kids?" James gave me a sly look. "Do you really want to know?" Aaron asked. Not sure if this would ruin any suspense for us or not. I looked at James. "Do you want to know?" He thought for a second and nodded. "Yeah." And I turned to Aaron and nodded. "Your baby is the first one born underground in Colorado," Aaron said. James gently squeezed my hand. I said, "I guess I should add diapers to the evac supply list then." James smiled. "She's going to be the best mom." Aaron nodded in agreement. Aaron got up to give us both hugs and told us he must be going. April 28th, 2020. Life in the pandemic has just been weird. James hasn't been able to leave the base to come home in weeks, and I miss him so much. Working as a pediatric nurse, unlike many Americans, I don't have the luxury of working from home. I've been fortunate enough to stay healthy. I follow all safety procedures, and I've even put some in place at home. Aaron visited me tonight, although he said his superiors weren't happy about his making the trip during lockdowns, but he knew I was safe to contact. By now, I've figured out that they've found my journal in the future, so they know when Aaron is safe to visit me. Everything that Aaron has told me has been true or came true, so at this point, as terrifying as his revelations are, I trust him. What I'm going through right now, while it is difficult, it's definitely not the most horrific thing Aaron has told me about. Unfortunately, there isn't a lot of time left to prepare. Aaron has told me to make a list of items to gather and place into a suitcase so that they're ready to grab when an emergency arises. I call it the evac supplies. He told me to wait until the lockdowns are over to slowly start building up these supplies. although he said it will be longer than anticipated. A lot of these supplies are easy to figure out, like protein powders and bars, drinkable water, clean towels, even emergency bathroom supplies. I asked if I should have plenty of ammo on hand. He told me that may not be a bad idea, although he isn't sure and they don't have destructive weapons any longer. I asked him how they defend themselves. He told me that they use stunning weapons against anyone or anything that seems hostile. They have created defense weapons that will stun from a long distance in case they are being stormed by a local creature when they go up to the surface. I asked, what kind of local creatures are on the surface? Aaron couldn't tell me, but he did tell me that there are mutated species that didn't die out during the nuclear winter. He also told me that he hadn't encountered any. November 25th, 2022. Aaron visited tonight and wished me and James a happy belated Thanksgiving. I offered him some traditional foods, and he was able to taste the mashed potatoes and gravy, sweet potato casserole, and the cranberry sauce. Aaron was amazed at the food's flavors, but I could tell it was a little too much for him. I don't imagine living underground you get too many great flavors. Aaron told us that the time is getting close. James confirmed that he had heard some personnel already talking about using the Colorado facilities if things got worse. Tensions are mounting across the states and across the world, and it's making a lot of people nervous. Aaron warned us about an attack in Washington that ends up being a trigger for many more events across the country. He says that James should have clearance to go to Colorado with me as soon as that happens, and we are to go without any time to waste. Aaron gave me instructions on where to place the journal when we leave, right below the mirror on my vanity. October 31st, 2024. The handwriting for this entry is hard to read, as though Sarah's hands were shaking as she wrote. There are droplet water stains on the page, presumably Sarah's tears, and who can blame her? Today is my 38th birthday, and it's James and I's 10th wedding anniversary, but I don't feel like there's too much to celebrate. This is my last journal entry. James got the call today to leave for the underground facility in Colorado. I had my prenatal checkup today, 4 months along, and it's a boy. James and I are delighted, but we do wish circumstances were different. As I was driving home from my appointment, I heard on the radio that shots were fired in Washington, the first shots in the soon to be war. The media is calling the group behind the attacks revolutionaries, but they call themselves true Americans. The group has been gaining members in secret, and it began in a very quiet way, person to person, out of necessity. Everyone knows that phones, smart televisions, and even modern civilian vehicles are equipped with ways to be listened in on. There is only an illusion of privacy. James and I are driving to Colorado tonight. He and I are one of the families that will be working in the new underground facility there. Aaron said the government started working on this underground system after World War II, but I'll bet they never wanted to use them outside of transporting arms from one facility to the next. I feel like we were chosen because of our specific skills and that they consider us to be useful. I don't know how Aaron thought warning us would help change things, and if they did change, would I have ever met him? Maybe a different timeline. I remember a time when I thought the most terrifying thing to have ever roamed the earth was a Tyrannosaurus Rex. I now realize it's humans. We're going to destroy everything we built and so much of what is left of nature, and for no positive outcome. Just because we refuse to work together. No compromise, only conflict. It is my hope that when we become the grays, that we also learn to operate in the gray and choose to be less black and white, learn to see eye to eye, and work together to rebuild something better than what we've lost. Because if we learn nothing from 3,000 years of underground self inflicted exile, we don't deserve to start over. Thanks so much for listening to the story. It was a long one, and I really appreciate you hanging around until the end. If you like the story, please hit the like button for me. And if you're not already subscribed, consider subscribing to hear more weird stories. They're not always this heavy. Share this with anybody you think might enjoy the story or other stories on the channel. It really helps me out a lot. I appreciate you, and until next time, be well, be happy, and stay safe. After all, it's a weird world.